So I'm going to kick this off by really introducing myself, telling my story, and then get into what I'm building. So my DeFi journey really started when I joined a lending protocol called Rory Capital. And there I got kind of thrust into the midst of what it was like to work at a pretty serious protocol with a good bit of traction and a lot going on. And I learned a good bit about the way credit is formed on chain, kind of what I liked about the ecosystem, what I didn't like, and what I wanted to do differently. And it gets me into what we're building at Chroma and how we're sort of structuring this venture. And so what we're building is the Light protocol. And what this is a B2B protocol that's designed to make it as easy as possible to deploy, configure, and manage your own lending pool. And I'll get into what makes it special in a minute. But before I do that, I want to talk a bit about the sort of state of credit on chain through the lens of forking. And so really early on, really as early as DeFi summer, we saw a lot of people wanting to repurpose lending software. And a lot of these things weren't too innovative. They were using a lot of unsustainable emissions. But as we've gone and moved towards today, we see a lot more innovation in terms of what people are doing and the types of assets they're using as collateral and what's going on here. But we haven't seen much innovation in the actual underlying technology they're using. And so that's where Light Protocol comes in. What it is a specialized solution for this class of users that wants to deploy and own and manage lending ecosystems. And so what we specialize in is making it easy to innovate in really two dimensions. The first is to innovate on the parameters, and to make it easier to deploy and configure and manage than a fork by quite a bit, actually. And we also introduce some novel security parameters that give you more tools to combat economic exploits. The other dimension is that we let you innovate on the mechanism through a system of hooks. And so this is how someone like Ondo or a real world asset issuer would be able to KYC people. Instead of altering something like Compound, you would just plug in a hook and you'd be able to pick who's whitelisted, et cetera. But we also allow you to really seriously change the actual lending mechanism. And to highlight one use case, we can take the same tech stack, plug in a hook, and engage in under collateralized lending. And this is particularly interesting because that actually has a different source of demand than demand for leverage. So one of my most important lessons at Rory is that people that want to step in the world of on-chain credit don't just want a sort of software solution. They want more of a full stack and comprehensive solution that makes their life as easy as possible when they go to step in to create a lending ecosystem. And that's what we're going to build at Chroma by building products and services on top of the protocol. And by doing this, we're going to make it we're going to further distinguish our offering from our competitors, from forks of other protocols, and even from forks of our own protocol. So if you like DeFi or interested in anything that I said, lending and borrowing, definitely follow us on Twitter, join our Telegram group. We'll be giving some updates on our testnet, which is going to come out in about a month. If you're looking for a lending solution, you're innovating in the world of on-chain credit, working with good collateral like real-world assets, receipt tokens, liquid staking, et cetera, definitely reach out to me. We built out a pretty good solution that could help save you a lot of time and money. And if you're investing in DeFi, we're going to be putting together a round starting in about a month, and I'd love to chat there. So thank you everyone for taking the time, and I'll take any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. First question, how do you think about value capture across the protocol and product layers?
Yeah, this is a very loaded question, and we see a lot of experimentation going here. And so one of the things that I've done is I've sort of built a really diverse way so that we can be pretty nimble and decide where to capture value at a later point. I don't want to concretely make too many decisions, but I think we're building a pretty defensible ecosystem with a lot of ways to either capture value at the protocol layer and look to make that more defensible, or to look to capture value at the product or the application layer and make that defensible, or to work somewhere in between those layers and create sort of defensible models within that. And so it's a pretty loaded question. If you're really interested in having me answer it, definitely reach out to me on Twitter. We could spend hours talking about this and would love to chat about that.
Second question is, you mentioned innovating on parameters. Can you explain that further?
Yeah, so innovating on the parameters, by that I mean innovating on the types of assets you'd bring into a lending pool. And so you see a lot of people doing this. You see like Ondo is bringing real world assets on chain and putting those in their own pool. And so be innovating on the types of assets you can use, the collateralization or the other parameters there. And also we add some new parameters that give you more tools to combat various types of exploits and be more proactive with regards to security. And so that's what it kind of means. It's sort of diversity in the types of assets and the ways you can pilot these ecosystems.
Paul from Bo asks, how are you thinking in terms of go to market? Why would you be the first market deployers?
So yeah, go to market's pretty simple. We're going to work with sort of the people that are experiencing this problem the deepest, which is mostly protocols that have some sort of strategic interest in bringing utility towards an asset. And so you see this with like LP tokens, restaking and fixed income, et cetera. They all have sort of a strategic interest to bringing these things on chain or to using these in a lending market. And there's a deep need for a better solution than all the effort that goes into fork and compound. And so we'll start there, build out a narrative as to what the protocol is capable of, how it makes your life easier, and how it helps solve problems. And then ideally use that narrative to catalyze the broader idea that we've made it easier to innovate in terms of on-chain credit and use that to hopefully inspire people to just sort of create new opportunities, compete with some of the incumbents, and really just use the free market to bring efficiency to the on-chain credit markets.
Jay Prashad asks, have you thought about lending on LP tokens? So leverage on UniV3 WETH or step positions?
Yeah, definitely thought a lot about this. UniV3 is hard because it's a 721, and right now we support only ERC20s. But I think there's a good bit of movement in standards like 1155. And if a token standard for LP tokens like that does make a serious traction, we would want to support that and build that in as a source of collateral so that you can borrow and lend, ERC20s against like 1155s or another type of standard. 721s are just a bit too difficult to work with for the pooled model. But if we can build a better standards and work around that, something we're definitely interested in. We're in talks with a number of parties that are really interested in using LP tokens as collateral.
Howard asks, any detail for the lending pool you're working on compared with Compound and Aave?
Yeah, the actual pool itself, the biggest distinguisher is the hooks, which allow you to really innovate on the mechanism. But just to highlight a couple of the UX experiences that differ from Compound. We have a system of sort of native batching where you can sort of arbitrarily enter and exit any position. And so the UX for the lenders and borrowers is really pretty clean. We have a number of other security tools that make it a lot safer. And there's really a lot I could get into here. If you're interested in learning more, definitely reach out and talk to me. We'll have a test net up in the next month where you can actually test out the UX and see a lot of what we've done differently.
That's super exciting. We have time for about 2 or 3 more questions. So one, how does this differ from competitors like Euler?
So it's hard for me to say how it differs from Euler because they're kind of half in stealth. But I think what really differs from what we're doing is that we're really focused on a B2B model of making it as easy as possible for other people to lend and borrow. And that's what we're doing at the smart contract layer. And that's what we're also doing at the product layer. And so I think that focus really differentiates ourselves from other things that exist today and the way other people are building lending solutions.
Paul Frambeau is back at it again with the great question. Will you help market creators set their own risk parameters? If not, do you expect them to be knowledgeable about risk?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so as I said in kind of one of my last slides, the goal is to eventually vertically integrate and be able to provide these services for these types of people. But for now, we'll either work with an outside party, and we're in talks with a couple on like setting the types of parameters or what's sort of safe to set and be pretty conservative in the early days. But as we scale and sort of vertically integrate the entire solution, we're going to make it a lot easier for these people to sort of get everything they need, which includes that sort of risk analysis.
For our last question, I'm going to choose Praneet. He asks, who do you see as the early adopters for Chroma and why?
Yeah, as I said earlier, the early adopters are the people that are looking to bring utility to on-chain assets. And so this could be real-world assets. This could be more native on-chain assets like staking yields. These are going to be the earliest adopters, and this is where we're seeing the most demand and the people that are facing the problems I've described the deepest.
Thanks so much, Jack. This was great.